This is Chris Kelly with your Peak Fitness upper body postural screen. For our upper body postural screen, we're just going to take a look at two key moves that kind of involve the upper extremities. For our first exercise, we're going to perform what's called shoulder mobility. So I'm going to ask my client to ball their hands up in a fist like this, place one hand on the top, one hand on the bottom and one hand on the top. Try to get them as close together as possible. All right, what I'm looking for here is how easily or how close together the client is able to bring their hands. All right, if this is more than 1.5 hand lengths apart, then we know that we have some issues here. Okay, if the client is within a hand length and a half, so around maybe 8 to 10 inches, they're fine. Okay, we know that that's about normal shoulder mobility. All right, if they're within, if they're more than 2 hand lengths, they are compromised. We're giving them a 1. All right, this is either a pass or fail. All right, if the client is more than hand lengths and a half apart, we're giving them a 1. If they're not, we're going to give them a 2. They pass. All right, in that case as well, we want to ask the client, is either movement painful? The other thing that I will add is that we're scoring the top side. So if I have my left hand on top, that's what we're looking at. If I have my right hand on top, that's what we're looking at. All right, so moving on. With our next test, if we find that that's an issue, the client is particularly stiff on the bottom or on the top, you might also want to make a note of that. We'll get a little bit more into that in subsequent videos. All right, now for our next test, we have a push-up. All right, for the push-up, what we want to do is just ask the client to come into a push-up position. All right, demonstrate the movement. Back is flat like a table, and just perform a push-up. Bring your chest to whatever surface you're on, and come back up. All right, I'm just going to ask the client to perform 5 slow push-ups, okay? And what I'm looking for here are several things, all right? Whether or not the midsection is collapsing in here, that would be an issue with the core. Whether or not the client's shoulders are shrugging, okay, that would be an issue with the upper extremity. Whether or not the elbows are flaring out to the side, okay, that would also be an upper body issue. Finally, the other thing that I'm looking at are their shoulder blades, okay? When they're pushing up, we should see sort of the shoulder blades separating and then coming back together without looking like they're collapsing. All right. Oftentimes we'll see something like this with somebody that has issues with maybe their scapulae or their issues with their middle back. They'll come down, and when they come up, it looks like they'll collapse. They shrug together, and they kind of lose that. Okay. Whatever you might see, just make a note of that. Write that down. We'll check in the breakouts, but just make a note of that. And move on. If they cannot. And again, this is one of those ones where it's a little bit more subjective. If they can do a perfect push-up on the floor, they get a 3. If they do some sort of, if it's some sort of a compensation, which they're not, you give them a cue, you try to correct their form, but they still can't do it. The first thing that I would do is move them up to a higher surface. Oftentimes that cleans that up, and that gives us a feel for whether or not that's a postural issue or just a mechanical cue we have to fix. If you can fix that mechanical cue, they're good. Just give them a 2. That's what it was. If they can't do it at all, if they're still having that compensation regardless of how high you move them up, it's not a strength issue, okay, then we're going to give them a 1 and we're going to write down whatever we see. So for example, shrugging of the shoulders, elbows flared out to the side. So let them do it on their own. If they can't do it on the floor, move them up to a higher surface. And keep going like that until they're up at a surface where they can confidently push up and down. If the problem continues to manifest itself after you've kind of given them cues and corrections, then we know that it is a true postural issue. So we want to make a note of that and move on to our upper body breakouts.